The NHL trade deadline is Friday, and we've had a little bit of movement. We had some big early season trades, and now the market has reset. So, who should be making the future type moves, we'll say? Here are 5 teams that should be sellers at this NHL trade deadline. Up first for me, the New York Islanders. They have been able to squeak into the playoffs on a few occasions and even pushed in a little bit deeper at some times. But this is an aging group, and it does need a little bit of a reset now out in New York. With Barzal and Horvat, a couple other young pieces that you have, a few pretty strong spots on the blue line. This is a team that could turn it around pretty quickly. And they have a couple of rental type pieces or guys on 2-year contracts that could get a little bit of value for them. And so I just think the Islanders are in a spot that they need to make some moves here and just kind of reset things a little bit around what is still, I think, a pretty solid core. Speaking of cores, the Pittsburgh Penguins are a team that I think need to sell off a few pieces. Not full-on teardown, like you're not trading Letang, Malkin, all of those guys, but they're stuck, and they're not going anywhere, and they tried to build a last gasp winner around Sidney Crosby, and it's not working, and it does feel like you are kind of wasting some of the years of Sidney Crosby, who still, as we saw at the Four Nations, is still quite good at the sport of hockey, but it has been an absolute waste. And so look, if Pittsburgh this week decides, like, look, it ain't going to work. Like, we're just not going to get there. It would be tough to be the guy who trades away a bunch of franchise cornerstones and a potential revolt out in Pittsburgh, but it's not going great. And if they just wanted to, like, yeah, Crosby to Colorado, fine, we'll do it. We'll tap. Everyone wants it. We'll give it to you. I think that could be, like, they could get at least a little bit for some of those guys and then really start over. But I do think that there'll be a couple kind of secondary pieces for them to try to move on from. Our third seller, the Nashville Predators. They already started it with the Gus Nyquist trade. They took a huge swing in the offseason. Everyone thought they were the winners of the offseason, including me. Just didn't work out all that well. So they are in a difficult spot right now. And so I think that they are much more future focused now in Nashville and going to be making a few of those moves. Number 4, the Seattle Kraken, another team that took a couple of big shots in the offseason, signing Montour and Chandler Stevenson with kind of win now type of moves. Well, they're not. So I think that there are a few ways that this team can be competitive in a little bit, but they obviously are not the Vegas Golden Knights of expansion teams. They just have not been able to add that high-level talent in the same way that Vegas did, and so I think trying to add a few of those pieces and build up that organizational depth is the way to go. And the last one here, the Buffalo Sabres. Again, not a full-on teardown, which would sting because they've done a couple of those now, and it just hasn't clicked in the way that they would want it to. They have such an exciting young blue line and a very good forward in Tage Thompson to build around, but they just need a few more good pieces around those guys to come out of this rebuild here. And so I do wonder if there is just a little bit more that comes from this team. And like a lot of talk around Cousins, a lot of talk in Calgary around Cousins. I've never thought that the two teams match just because what the Flames have that's expendable, Buffalo doesn't want. Like the Buffalo's already set on the blue line, and the Flames have a ton on D that they could trade to try to swing a move like that, and it hasn't really gotten there. So I think that Buffalo wants a little bit more scoring. Calgary doesn't have that in spades, let's say, to move on from. So I don't think that's a match. But I do think that if they turned Cousins into a couple of pretty good offensive pieces, then things could start to roll a little bit in Buffalo. Not that Cousins is holding them back. It's just they need more than a Dylan Cousins on their team right now. So that is the NHL story. Again, I'm going to be on Sportsnet 960 The Fan Monday night at 6 o'clock, talking a little bit more NHL, and I'm going to be on the rest of the week. I don't know what I'm doing for trade deadline yet, so keep it locked on my social media accounts. I am at Primetime Klein basically everywhere. Check me out there. I'm going to be doing something on trade deadline day. I just don't know what or where yet.